I swear to God, I was doing an impression of Archie Bunker being blown by a great white shark.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright, back with another ridiculous and unnecessary intro.
None necessary, huh?
Not necessary. Anyway.
Nick DiPaolo. Hi, I'm Raelyn. Nice to meet you, Nick. This is my co-host, Jonathan Bright. We call him JB.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, you're the coolest. Thank you.
You got it. I have more free time than I admit.
I'm surprised that you answer your DMs, and I find that very cool.
I don't. I have a young Asian girl tied to a radiator downstairs. She does it.
An Asian girl?
Yeah, he's old school.
Yeah.
He has an Oriental tied downstairs.
She's slow to get back. She does get back.
That's right. I got to give her more water, I guess.
Okay, so we like to start off with asking you, what is the first music you remember loving as a kid?
Very first, as a child.
I would say it was the organist at Fenway Park.
Okay. Hey, that makes sense.
That would go, dun, 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 dun. No, Aerosmith. Dream On.
Okay. What
did you hear it on the radio? Did you have older brothers? How'd you come across it?
I heard it on the radio. I was probably 1970. I'm about 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I would hear it on the radio a lot. And then one of my older sisters got me the album for Christmas.
So were they hip older siblings that had good record collections, or did you learn that from somewhere else?
Yeah, they weren't that hip. I'm surprised they gave me a gift at all, to be honest with you, with the relationship. But I think I was more into music than they were. It was Aerosmith's album Dream On, and my other sister gave me a Cheech and Chong album on the same Christmas. So that's where I learned my dirty words.
And is it just two sisters that you have?
No, I have 3. I have a younger sister.
Well, you're the only boy.
No, I got a brother.
Oh, lots of you. So
younger brother.
Now, your mom and dad, what kind of music were they listening to when you were?
Oh, none. They're just white suburbanites. The greater Boston area. Only music my mother heard was the church organ, and.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. That's not fair. They liked Bob Seger because I used to listen to a lot of Seger in high school.
Oh, that's not bad.
And my mother's favorite song of all time is Wonderful Tonight, Clapton. So.
Nice. My mom's the same way. She's only praise and worship, Christian gospel music and Bob Seger.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said she'd only go, right? Yeah, she would only go to a Bob Seger concert or my grandpa. She loves him, but yeah, she's not a music person at all. What about your dad?
My dad. I mean, he liked Seger, and they actually liked Tom Jones. Remember when he had a show? And you're too young, Raelyn, probably, but in the 70s, Tom Jones had a show.
Yeah.
I think they actually saw him in Vegas. But they weren't big music people. They just they were hardworking people who took care of their kids,
So was it like that in high school? Like when we're probably 5 or 6 years apart, but you were judged harshly on your music taste. You almost formed
yes.
in junior high and high school. It's like
that's true. There was this friend of mine, Nathan Emerson. He was into Springsteen before anybody even knew Springsteen. He saw him like at Emerson College right before Springsteen became huge. And he kept bragging about him. And of course I was like, don't tell me he's better than Kiss, So we classed over that for years. And then when I learned a little about music, I go, okay, maybe he had yet I still listen to Kiss and Springsteen. So I don't know what to tell you. I have a wide variety of, I love Chris Stapleton. I'm not a huge country fan, but your granddad, who doesn't like, a Willie Nelson song comes on, I'm turning it up. And, but, I'm 60, so I'm kind of a classic rock guy, which people make fun of too, when you're an older white guy. And I'm like, Tom Petty, what's so funny about that?
Exactly.
I mean,
well, it's funny because all the kids, like I have nieces and nephews and stuff, and I ask them who the big rock band is, and they all go back to AC/DC or Guns N' Roses, maybe it's the newest. They don't have any brand new bands that they worship.
They don't say Raelyn.
That's right. That's right. I think that's what's cool about the internet, actually, though, because I have nieces and nephews that are in their late 20s, I guess, and they love the Stones and Zeppelin. And I think that's so cool. I think they must have taste because, once the 90s rolled around, I don't know. I didn't see much out there, but I'm not an expert. But I love that my younger nieces like the stuff that I liked when I was in high school.
Well, as a young person, I just want to say that that I do know that it is really cool to say that you like these old rock bands. If you know these songs, if you, know some inner trivia stuff about it, then you're definitely cool, So it is cool to like them. So even if you don't really, and you just say you do, you're cool.
Raelyn, how old, can I ask, be rude and ask how old you are?
I'm 37, but I identify as a 27-year-old.
Yeah, I'm 60 and I'm identified as a 17-year-old Asian girl. Oops, that came up again. What's going on?
Boys with penises can be girls now, and we don't question that. Then I can be 20-fucking-7.
That's what I've heard. Every night I go to bed, I pretend I'm a woman, but it still feels the same.
That brings me to my next question for you. What's your pronoun?
Is douchebag a pronoun?
I think anything can be a pronoun now.
So
I don't know. That's a good question.
Like, who was your favorite comic growing up, aside from bands? Like, what got you into comedy?
Getting serious now?
Well, I was just trying to keep us from getting canceled in the first 10 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I forgot we're living in Nazi Germany.
Can we curse on this show? I'm kidding.
Oh God, I hope so. It's a fucking podcast. Richard Pryor, I saw the movie, Pryor live in concert, and George Carlin's album, Class Clown, all the older kids had it. So that was my first taste. But to be honest with you, Jay Leno, before he was the Tonight Show host, he's from my neck of the woods. I grew up about 15 minutes from him. I saw him on, and Raelyn's not going to get this reference, the Merv Griffin Show.
God, he's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. I saw him and I said, that guy sounds like me. He's a half Italian like me. But then Letterman used to have Jay Leno on when Letterman had a show on NBC. Letterman would have Jay on 3-4 times a month. He was like the top touring stand-up comedian. And those episodes of the Letterman show with Jay on, those are the ones that pushed me. By then it was the 80s and stand-up comedy was booming in the Boston area where I'm from. And those appearances by Jay pushed me over the edge. I said, this guy is so funny, and he would sell out everywhere and was a really good comic. But it's funny. So Jay's an influence, but Robert Klein, when people ask me this, Robert Klein, I absolutely still love. Even when he's past his prime, I think he's just great. So I would put him up there.
What were you doing before you decided to? Oh, go ahead. I want you to finish your thought. What were you saying?
No, I'm not. What was I doing before comedy?
Yeah. What were you doing?
I was an OBGYN.
Nice. In Asia.
I was doing it out of a van, but I had a ripped beanbag chair, and I would use a upside down Mountain Dew bottle for an IV, and they fell for it. But other than you know what I was doing? I was door-to-door salesman. I was selling frozen steak and seafood out of the back of an Isuzu pickup truck, door to door, for the first 3 years that I was out of college. And what an experience, man. I actually knocked on one day, it's about 6 at night. I've been out there 7 in the morning, hadn't sold anything. I knocked on a door in Cape Cod. You know who answered the door? Cyndi Lauper.
Nice.
Great reaction, fellas. I appreciate it. I just mixed in a comedy music story.
Good job. Good job.
You know her from the commercial. She has a rash she can't rid of. True colors.
I just want to know if you went to college to.
So,
did you go to college to learn to deliver seafood and meat?
well, no, but did you, when you get out of college, did you really do what you were going to do the rest of your life?
No, I don't know anybody that's ever done that other than doctors and lawyers.
I know it's a waste of money, isn't it?
Complete.
So I spent. Go ahead.
No, it is a complete waste of money.
I think you're right, brother. I spun that marketing degree into a stand-up comedian, and but you know what? I've done pretty well for myself for a long time. So, but that was a fun job. I got a bit knocking doors, and I got to write a book about that, but I don't want to get sued.
My grandpa actually, he would sell vacuums and encyclopedias door to door.
Did he really?
Yeah, and Bibles, I think.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. I remember
Vacuums and Bibles.
He's still doing it, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still doing
Is
it.
that right? Would he throw he'd show up at your door on Ash Wednesday and throw some on the rug and then vacuum it up?
That's why your family's so big. Door to door, baby.
I remember growing up because I grew up here.
Yeah.
And here in Nashville, and when
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and when I took gymnastics, the gymnastics teacher told me that Papa Willie sold her a vacuum. You know,
Oh
so
my
like
God.
I would run into people around here. They're like, "Yeah, your grandpa before he was big, he would sell me encyclopedias and Bibles."
Oh my God. Can you imagine? I get nervous when I go back to some of these. I did it all over New England, every state in New England, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. And I still play these cities of these states. I get nervous sometimes because I'm afraid some woman's going to come up and realize I charged her, $48 a pound for filet mignon. And her husband's going to knock my block in. But I get, especially when I do a gig in Rhode Island, anywhere in Rhode Island, because I actually lived down there when I was selling the food. And I pretty much cover that state. But it was funny. I got chased out of houses by, I'm right in the middle of a presentation and the husband would come home and just like chase me out of the house. And I was pretty decent looking when I was 21. and they would call my boss and I have to go get the food. And I get kicked out of insurance. We'd sell it anyway. I'd go to a gas station, insurance, small businesses, tanning salons. And it was a blast. I'd meet people. I dated some people.
Yeah, how many of these women did you fuck while you were delivering these?
Wow, the tone just changed on the show.
And just like that.
I got to be honest with you, Raelyn, not that many.
Not that
Honestly,
many.
I was
more
I
than
was
zero.
annoyed. Huh?
More than zero.
You're a handsome dude right out of college. All these lonely housewives that they're.
You're kind of on the road like being in a band, like a singer-songwriter. Just, pick one out of the crowd.
Yes.
I'm ashamed if you didn't try to fuck these women.
Well, it's so funny. I still remember this woman named in Massachusetts named Kathleen. She had her husband was a lawyer. There were 2 BMWs in the driveway. She was really good looking. I sold her some food, and you're not supposed to go back. They're not supposed to call you for like another 6 months. She called me like 10 days later. So I go back. She lets me in the house, and she's got 3 of her girlfriends sitting at the table. And I'm doing my pitch, and I look up, and they're all like this. And I got all flustered, and I went, "You don't want this crap." And I just sort of took off. I panicked. I was overwhelmed.
You don't want this meat. You want this meat. No?
Yes. No, I tried that once and the husband didn't find it funny. But
like when did you use, is this when you were doing these presentations, were you like throwing jokes in here? Is this where you kind of got to cultivate that art?
That's actually a decent question because I was quick on my feet. Even before I became a salesman, that's why I wanted to get into comedy. So yeah, I mean, a good joke, make the people laugh goes a long way because you're selling yourself, really.
Right.
At least I was $150 a half hour. But but I'd show. I showed up at this couple's house in Peabody, Massachusetts, old Italian couple in their 70s, retired. The minute I would show up, the husband would go to the liquor cabinet and pour me and him a glass of whiskey like that. And I have to sit there for the next 3 hours keeping them company. And then when I knew that he was pretty shit-faced, I'd bring him out and show him what I had in the truck. And 3 out of the 4 times, he took the whole truck. He wrote me a check for like $3,500, took everything I had in the truck.
Damn.
I'm falling on my seat. So yeah, it was interesting, and yeah, it's a good way to train to think on your feet, and
get them drunk.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
That couple I made the guy nervous apparently, or was just an alcoholic, and I'd come at the right. I'd always show up at like 4:00. Just.
Oh yeah. That's...
One time, one of the objections was when people would say, "We don't have any room in our freezer." And we were supposed to say, what I can't fit in there, I'll give it to you for free. And then I'd open their freezer and there would be everything in there from, venison to raccoon to a 14-year-old girl's head. It was, just packed with popsicles. And I would take stuff out. Out of the freezer. And I did this to a lady, a town next to mine. And she left the room. And I slipped a couple of boxes of Fudgicles under her couch. She had a refrigerator in her den. So I slipped a box of Fudgicles and something else, fish sticks or something. And it made room for a box of, I remember, filet mignon and a box of jumbo shrimp. And she took those. And then she called me, like 2 weeks later, did you put ice cream under my couch? And she wasn't even mad. She wanted to order more chicken cordon bleu or something. Yeah, we had chicken cordon bleu. The food was actually really good.
How come nobody does that anymore?
Yeah.
I see one every now and then. You'll see one, but it's not really door to door. I think maybe people order it online and they deliver, but I don't think people are knocking on doors anymore. That'll get you killed.
Yeah, you're probably right, the whole online thing. But that was the fun of it, man. It was just, it was a weird job. I'd be out there for 12 hours, not sell anything, and then bang, at 9:00 at night, some couple would take the whole truck because they were already had a few beers in them or whatever. It was really, it burnt me out in 2 years. I couldn't even, by the end of the second year, I wouldn't even stop and ask people for directions. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was so burnt. And, but it was fun. Then I sold cable TV door to door after that for about a year. And my brother got me into that. He worked for Time Warner Cable. He was a door-to-door salesman. He stayed with the company. It was his first job out of high school. He retired about 10 years ago from Time Warner Cable. Became a big shot.
Wow.
And I'm telling dick jokes at midnight. But anyways.
Well, speaking of dick jokes, so how did you transition from doing door-to-door into comedy? Did you have friends that were pushing you into it, or you mentioned Leno but I know Boston had a huge comedy scene at that time too. No,
you're right. You're absolutely right. And I always wanted to do it, but I was afraid to. I had a couple of buddies. One kid I went to high school with, Bob Murphy, still the funniest guy I ever met. He worked for a think tank. He's a really smart dude. And another friend of mine who just passed away 3 weeks ago, 4 years older than me, my best friend, actually. He was so damn funny. So, but the guy that pushed me into it was my roommate. While I was selling steak door to door, I was living in Albright, Massachusetts. My roommate was studying optometry in Boston. We met at the University of Maine. Anyways, we had a few drinks one night. He thought I was the funniest guy on the planet, and he called me a pussy for not going to an open mic night, And we almost got into a shoving match, and get drinks in you. And then I laid in bed that night. I go, this guy's right. My manhood is in question here. So I put my name in at Stitches Comedy Club in Boston. Sure enough, a week later, they call me. They said, you're on Sunday night at like 8:15 or something. And I shit my pants. But that's how it started.
Did you have material written when you went in the first time, or did you just wing it?
I did. No, you can't just win, especially your first time. Although, you know what? Yeah, I had 5 terrible minutes written. That sounds so funny when you're on the way there in the car, and then you open your mouth and they're staring at you. What an idiot! My first line on stage was an ad lib that you guys probably won't appreciate because it's a Boston reference. But I showed up there and I had jeans and a sweatshirt on. I didn't know what to wear to a comedy club, and the guy in front of me that I had to follow had a tuxedo on. So I went up after him and I said, "Sorry, folks, address it." I said, "I didn't know what to." I just said, "I didn't know." This is the reference. I don't know if you'll get it. I didn't know I'd be following Mr. fucking Saunders tonight, which is a tuxedo place up in Boston. And that got a nice laugh. And George McDonald was the host of the show. He was a well-known comedian in Boston. He said, "That's when I knew you were going to do fine. When your first thing out of your mouth was an ad lib." And then the rest of my written stuff went in the toilet. I was doing stuff like, I swear to God, I was doing an impression of Archie Bunker being blown by a great white shark. That was one of my bits.
So you're working clean at
And
the beginning.
And something about shaving my sister's back, something like that.
But I would think
And,
with the comics, though, or it seems like the comics that came out of Boston, you almost had to go in swinging like that because it didn't seem like a tame bunch that was working back then.
No, you got that right, brother. You got that right. It was a great bunch. It to this day, let me tell you, in the 80s, that was the comedy Mecca, Boston, Massachusetts. I mean, Bobcat Goldthwait moved there. Janine Garofalo moved there. Kevin Meaney, all these big names moved to Boston. And Dennis Leary was a Boston guy. Lenny Clark and Steve Sweeney, they were the kings of Boston. Still the funniest. I mean, there's something in the water. If you look at who's come out of Boston and made it, not that everybody who makes it commercially is great, but I mean, look, Conan O'Brien, Stephen Wright, Joe Rogan, Dane Cook, Jay Leno, Billy Burr, Louis C.K. It's the comedy Mecca for I just did a Boston. Mecca. It's the Mecca. It's the comedy Mecca. Give me a vodka and tonic, please. So yeah, you're right though. Nick's Comedy Club was the big hangout, and if you had to go on after Steve, and they would throw you up there to the Lions. They're all doing blow. They're all crazy, funny, genius guys who did a ton of blow. They would go up there and rip the roof off the place, and then go put on DiPaolo. He thinks he's funny, and you get your head handed to you. But like you said, Jonathan, it was great training. You had to come out swinging, and we talk really fast in Boston. Then you put 2 bumps of Coke on top of it. Yeah, it was a good place to get good.
Do you write a lot of jokes while you're on stage? Do you do the ad lib thing now?
I do. I used to sit down and this happens probably with musicians too. You sit down, I used to put pen to paper, and that worked well for a while. And I don't know, then I'm just a lazy dude. I don't know, but I come up with a lot of stuff off the top of my head. And when you're a comedian, I don't know about being a musician, you record your sets. You should be, especially if you're a young comic. Then you go home and you listen to your sets, and because you don't always remember what you throw in off the top of your head. And you listen, and you might, even an old joke, you say, I could tell that this way, that would lead to the, if you put that discipline into it, the set will grow quickly. So yeah, I do it now. Today, it's all, I record myself every show, and I probably listen to 1 in 10 because I can't stand my own voice.
What got you from, so what made you want to go from Boston to New York?
I'll tell you what, New York was where it was at. As far as if you wanted to be a stand-up and get seen. I mean, Boston had a great scene as far as doing a bunch of one-nighters and plenty of stage time. But again, all the, sort of like it is, showbiz was in New York and LA. And, Jerry Seinfeld and all the big guys were in New York. Alan Havey at the time, Robert Klein would pop into the Improv. And it's so funny. I remember the night I drove to New York by myself. I had a manager who was already living there. I stayed at his apartment, but I drove down. He wasn't even in town. I had a 1:15 a.m. spot at the Improv in New York City, the original Improv. I was all excited about it. I'd never been in New York City before. Here I am driving around trying to find the Improv and looking for a parking spot. And So I go on in front of literally 8 people, after driving 3.5 hours from Boston. I go on in front of 8. I did all right. I go back to my manager's little apartment on the Upper West Side, and there's an old Playboy magazine. I open it up, and there's an article about Jay Leno, and the article is about the first time he auditioned at the Improv in New York City, which to me was like, I don't know, that was like a sign I'm doing the right thing, or I should be doing. I mean, what are the odds?
Right.
He's talking about the same lady that I was trying to, impress so I could get past at the club. And it was just mirroring what I just went through a couple hours earlier. So I thought that was pretty weird,
So we got to ask a little bit about one of my favorite shows all time, Tough Crowd. How did you, because I consider you one of the goats of that show. A couple of them are dead, Patrice, Geraldo.
Yeah,
Norton.
I killed them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some slower than others.
Yeah, me. Yeah, those guys, you just name, me and Patrice were these straws that stirred the drink, as people said. Up to that point, excuse me 1 second. I'm going to switch to weed. Cigarettes are killing me. Up to that point, nobody was really talking honestly about race. And me and Patrice met each other at the Comedy Cellar. And we didn't know each other for 2 minutes. We were ripping each other apart and saying stuff that you could never say on TV. And Colin Quinn is sitting there, and Jim Norton and Gerald. And Colin Quinn, the genius that he is, sitting there, soaking it all in for about a year. And then he had the idea for Tough Crowd. And that show, even now, when I do a gig, people come up to me, and I'm talking young kids in their 20s, going, I love that show. We looked it up on the internet, Tough Crowd. Can't believe you guys could get away with that. Why don't they do that now? Then I have to explain to them, being run by liberal fascist a-holes. So that show did a lot for me. It gave me a reputation, but not like not a darling of Hollywood. Let's put it that way. But they still welcomed me on Comedy Central roasts, and black people loved me on the sidewalk in New York. They come up to me. You're that guy that you and Patrice O'Neal bust each other balls. We love that. It was just 2 guys being honest. And Colin Quinn is just the smartest, funniest dude. He would write those monologues. He grew up in Brooklyn, surrounded the most diverse high school in the country. He knew more about ethnicity and race than anybody I've ever met. And he's just so smart. And he put me on the show. I got in trouble on the second show. I get called into Comedy Central, and Colin's there. I'm like, what did I do? And they said I was making too many Jewish jokes. And they said, the problem is you can make them, but you're not smiling when you say. I go, do you ever think I wasn't kidding?
I was just about to ask.
That got dead silent.
I was just about to ask if you had any situations where things would just get cut completely out of the show that got way, because I go back and watch them, and I'll send her sometimes. I'm like, listen to the shit they could say back then, and it really is amazing now.
It's shocking, yeah.
It is what we got away. It was a groundbreaking show. People, and like I said, even the young kids today, they look it up on the internet, and that's the way it should be, because silence equals tension, in my opinion. Not violence or whatever the LGBT slapped on it. Silence, you got to let this poison out. It's like a boil. You got to let it out, or it's going to keep building and building. And the more quiet and more bullshit when we talk about race, it makes it even more dangerous. And that's what people loved about me and Patrice, and the fact that Colin was smart, and Geraldo. I mean, Greg Geraldo said stuff on there that made me look like a left winger. God bless his soul. But we were all friends, I don't think that was the key. I don't think the audience knew that, we would get into heated discussions on that show. That was real, but we were friends afterwards. You can't do that today. People are just, words can. I had my own radio show on CBS Radio in New York for about 5 minutes. And my first day there, they handed me some booklet I was supposed to read before the next day. It was from HR and a whole lecture about how words can hurt. So I came out and I said, here's the book they gave me last night. And I said, it starts with a big fat lie. Words can hurt. I've said I've never been hurt by a word. I don't give a shit. Oh, emotionally, grow up. Let it bounce off you. I just don't buy any of that shit. A rock to the face. Then I wrote, that hurts. I'll take a word over a rock anytime. I used to say, they talk about people getting bullied on the internet. And I go, people are getting bullied on the internet? I said, I'd rather get bullied on the internet than in person. Like when I get bullied as a kid, I'd rather have somebody, write something filthy on my Facebook wall than knock me unconscious at the mall.
Yeah, back in the day, you couldn't just block your bully back in the day with a button punch.
That's right. You had to meet him on the way to school every day.
Which kind of,
and you know what? I was that guy. So anyway,
another thing about Tough Crowd, another thing about Tough Crowd that used to fuck me up is when guys, you talk about you guys were all friends on Tough Crowd. Some of my favorite moments were when guys came on that weren't part of that circle, and it got I remember when Dat Fan came on there, it was so uncomfortable. I remember Geraldo just looking at Dennis Leary. Oh my gosh, I went back and watched that the other day. So uncomfortable and fantastic.
And I'm friends with both those guys, and I know both those guys, and I watched it. I was drooling. I was pissed I wasn't on that show. But I loved it. What I'm trying to think of some of the other incidents on that show, but we were just very honest. And then one day, like an executive comes up to Colin Quinn from Comedy Central and says, "You guys are talking too much about race." Meanwhile, we were beating The Daily Show in ratings, like when they would show reruns at 11:30. We were beating The Daily Show. And you're talking, here's where the evil left comes in, And the guy actually said to Colin Quinn, what an insult. Colin Quinn grew up in Brooklyn. Like I said, he has actually black in-laws from the Caribbean. And they said, why don't you let Chappelle handle the race stuff? Which incensed everybody. And here we are today, So I just want to clear up for people. I love Chappelle. He's one of my favorite comics. I like him in person. He used to hang out at the Comedy Cellar. But lately, everybody's treating him like a god because he pushed back against the whole trans thing. And I just have to state, he can do that because he's famous and black. He didn't get canceled. If Colin Quinn did that, or whoever, pick a famous white comic, you wouldn't hear from him again. And people always forget that. They point to these comics. He's really edgy. And well, he can afford to be. They give him more leeway. And like I said, I love Chappelle. I'm glad he did. I'm glad somebody was pushing back. Mm-hmm. But don't make him out to be this, pioneer.
It is kind of weird how things have progressed over my lifetime. I don't really at this point, I think both political parties are completely full of shit. But when I was a kid, it was the right that was out at the Ozzy concerts, holding up signs and the no fun team. And then at some point, and even people that I knew that were going to the Ozzy shows, now all of a sudden are mad about trying to silence people and this, that. And I'm like, what happened to my generation? Because we were, and I don't know, it's just bizarre how things just flip like that.
Well, all the hippies, I'll tell you what the cancer was. All the hippies around Vietnam time, all the ones who are out there protesting and pissing and spitting at the soldiers coming home. They grew up and realized that they live in a capitalist society and they had to actually make a living, not lay around smoking pot. And a lot of them were smart. And some of those jerk-offs work at Wall Street now. And they infiltrated the institutions that they used to piss on. I laugh at all you, Bob, not Bob Marley. What am I saying? Jesus Christ. I'm talking about Bob, come on. No.
Yeah, fuck that Bob Marley guy. He was an asshole.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You know who I'm talking about, the rock and roller, the Jewish guy from Minneapolis.
Oh, Bob Dylan?
Bob
Dylan.
Thank you. Jesus, I'm losing my memory. Bob Dylan, I couldn't come up with. Nice meeting you guys.
Well, he and Bob Marley look a lot
Bob Barker. Bob Barker. But, Bob. By the way, Bob Saget was killed by the fucking Pfizer shot. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Anyway, I wasn't a big fan. Full House was horseshit. I bet you he's in hell right now just for taking that job. Maybe John Stamos will find a lump in his armpit. Where was I? Bob Dylan. What did I want to say about Bob Dylan? Oh yeah, guys like that, they pissed all over the Capitol and money, and then they get older and they sell their record, catalog for trillions of dollars. They're complaining about, like De Niro complaining about his taxes in upstate New York. All the left are fucking hypocrites. That's why I like the right. They never try to hide their greediness and shit. We know who the righties are. And you're right. I mean, back in the day when the Christian right had a little power, they were the pain in the ass too. I agree with that. But it's flipped way the other way to the point where I just bought a duplex in Ukraine, in Kiev. And I want to live in a free country.
It does make me curious though, where if somebody like like Bill Hicks was still alive, because he was a lefty for sure. But you would think that he would be able to call bullshit on his own. Like nobody on either party calls bullshit on their own party. That's what bothers me. Jimmy Dore goes crazy on the left, but you wonder if Bill Hicks, I think he would get it now,
Tim Dillon talks shit.
But he would. Hicks would get it. But let me just address this. I don't like this equivalency when people go, both sides do it. Usually the side that is saying that is the side that's guilty. Both sides do it. The right was never as fascist and as authoritarian as the fucking left is right now, ever. To the point, they burn books basically when they block your books on from being sold, and they're book burners. They're just hypocrites, and they're full of hate. They're shrill people. I can smell one a mile away. I fucking hate them. And Biden, he's just a hollowed out husk. He's just, getting the message across for the globalists, whatever you want to call them, the Bilderberg group, the elites, whoever, the 10 guys that run the planet. They're trying to execute their plan right now. So that's how I look at it.
It's tough for them to keep a leash on him, though. I just heard him calling for the New World Order, like out of his mouth the other day. It's like, they were in the back. No, stop.
Yes. That's right. My wife said that last night. They go, this guy, I said, they can't brief him with classified shit. He'll come out and spill the beans. He has no idea what he's saying. I meant that. I'm going to kill Putin myself. And, they give him some green jello. Go sit down in your rocking chair. So actually it was a brilliant move by the left to put him in as president, because they just fill him with crap and they push him out there and he's like a robot. Actually, brilliant move. But, all the stuff that they accused Trump when Trump became president, they said he's not fit. He knows nothing about the military. He's a salesman. He's going to get us into World War III. All the shit they accused Trump of, Biden is doing exactly that.
It got no more authoritarian than the last 2 years. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, dude. It is. I had like this following on YouTube, and then I got a couple strikes on me, whatever. And I have a manager that contests them, and we're going back and forth. Then finally I couldn't even say stuff about COVID, just my opinion, and they wouldn't put it up. So we were smart about it. I didn't get my final strike, because then they'll delete my account completely. We just left 2 strikes, so I can just take clips from my show that aren't too scary for YouTube, and we advertise on that. But I would have 4 pages of thank yous every day of people that were contributing to my podcast. And boy, that shrunk in a hurry when I stopped going on YouTube, So anyways.
That gets me in the whole, I'm a big time free speech guy, and it just seems like all of this arbitrariness, it just seems so easy, even posting anything. Is it illegal? Is it illegal speech? If it's not, everything should go. That's just me. But
that's right.
It's like,
no, that's you and a bunch of people.
Yeah.
That's you and a silent majority of people, believe me. But But it's kind of crazy. They take a survey of millennials like a couple of years ago. 40% of them said that we're going too far with free speech and they don't mind it being curbed. I mean, holy moly.
Yeah. I'm just hoping the generation,
So I think
the generation behind them, hopefully, because it generally does this, and they'll look at the idiocy of their parents and maybe push it back the other way. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
then there's also two people that can get away with saying anything, in my opinion, and that's comedians and pregnant women. They can get away with saying anything.
Well, let me just put a finer point on that. Black comedians, gay comedians. I'm serious. Black comedians, gay comedians, Latino comedians, trans comedians. Yeah, pregnant women can get away with everything. It makes me enough to want to punch them in the stomach. No, it's a joke, folks. Everybody relax. I know they get to park up close at the mall when it's raining. The hell is that? I stuck a pillow under my shirt the other day. I had to run into CVS. I parked right up front. I said I was 8 months. And they said, why do you have a mustache? I said, I'm Greek. Anyway.
This is a complete offshoot, but didn't you used to room with Louis C.K. way back in the day? Didn't you guys come up together?
I did. This guy did his homework. Holy moly. Yes, I did. And he's a great guy, still is. I roomed with him for a year and a half, and I saw his penis, I'd say probably 10 times, 4 times consensually.
Just wake up staring to it in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. I go, Louis, what are you doing? I said, what are you doing, Louis? He goes, I'm waiting for you to wake up. We had a donut on around the end of it, and I'd take a bite. But he was such a crazy bastard. He would, I think it was an onion ring. How about the girls that suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder after they saw Louis' dick? What's he got? The ugliest dick on the planet? It's got like 8 heads and teeth and a fucking pitchfork. How do you get post-traumatic from seeing a dick? Maybe you're gay, bitch. Anyways, so Louis, he was crazy. He had the phone. He'd take a phone call, write a message. He'd write it on our kitchen wall with a Sharpie and shit. I mean, a true eccentric. And I loved him. He had
didn't get your security deposit
no concept of money. What's that?
You didn't get your security deposit
Yeah,
back.
no, it was our manager's apartment too. We ended up getting in a real big fight over that one.
What
Louis,
year-
when
what
I
year
was living, go ahead, what?
What year was this?
This was 1990, 89, 90. And so goddamn funny. I don't know if I should say this. He's worth millions. He was fuck it. That one's a little too close to home. When I was with him, though, this isn't it. But when I was with him, that for that year and a half or 2 years we lived together, he left 2 cars on the side of a highway, 2 different cars that just broke down, and he left them there. He was nuts. He was nuts. He didn't have any concept of money. I'm going to tell you one quick story. We're in San Francisco. We were both working I think we were co-headlining the Punchline in San Francisco. Again, this is early 90s when people use VCRs. And he said, me and him were worth about, honest to God, between us, about $1,100 net worth. We were broke comedians. So he got an advance in cash. I didn't know why. He says, I'm going to go rent the VCR for us so we can watch movies all week. He's gone for like 4 hours, comes back with an $800 trumpet.
What the fuck?
I said, how the fuck are we going to watch Jaws on a trumpet? I go, do you play the trumpet? No, I'm going to learn. Oh my God.
Did he learn?
So, I mean, he was just a little eccentric, but God damn it, funny. I just shot a movie with him upstate New York this past summer that he directed and wrote with my buddy Joe List, called The 4th of July. I think it's coming out probably in July, hopefully, if they know anything about marketing. But he was a great dad. I watched him raise his kids in New York City while he was writing and producing the show Louis and directing. Just an unbelievably hard worker. Smart beyond creepy. He's my favorite comic, and I would say that if I didn't know him. He is the best to ever do it, in my opinion. People argue, but his premises are more original than some of the great comedians' whole albums. Just his premises alone, I'm belly laughing. My favorite one is about Schindler's List. Yeah, a very good topic for comedy. Schindler's List. I'm just saying. That's Louis. He finds, he did a whole bit about. Did you guys see Schindler's List?
Yes.
The movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the cartoon. Yes.
The musical.
The sitcom.
I actually haven't seen it, but I know the reference. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the sitcom with Molly Matt. But there's a scene in the movie where they're marching the poor Jewish people through the streets, and all the Germans are lined up. All the civilians are yelling at them. And there's a little girl like standing on a mailbox going, "Get out of here, Jews! Get out of here," with a real me. And Louis says, "Do you realize he had to audition for that?" Somewhere there's a tape with like 50 girls that are like age 6 going, "Fuck you, Jews." And the director's going, "No, that's too much like Annie, get your gun, take it down a little. You're too big." And
Holy shit.
I mean, that just the premise made me cry. And then I'm listening, and I don't want to get you guys in trouble. I don't know who you are.
You're not going to get us in trouble.
You're not.
Oh
No.
I'm listening to him. He comes on yesterday in the car on Sirius XM. And he does it. He's talking. I turned it on in the middle of a bit. He's talking about a good-looking couple he saw walking down the sidewalk in New York with a little kid between them that he couldn't see. But the wife and the husband were so handsome, were so good-looking. He says they went behind a dumpster. He goes, "But I had to see what the kid looked like, in case I wanted to fuck him."
Oh my God.
And then he goes, "I'm kidding." He goes, "Folks, that was me just saying something horrible to get a reaction out of you so I could hate you." And then he goes, "I would never fuck a child. That is crazy." Well, not one that was alive. He goes, a dead one, maybe. He goes, if I found one, like I was walking home, I found one in a field and it wasn't raining. And it wasn't raining. I'm sorry. I hope I don't get you guys in trouble.
Yeah, honestly,
especially your grandfather.
One of the funniest things I've ever heard him say was on Opie and Anthony when he and Patrice are going about it. And Patrice said, "Hey, where the word came from?" I might have to bleep that. But you probably heard the exchange. And then
but go ahead.
Louis explained where the N-word came from. He says,
right.
There was just some guy standing around being a real N-word. And Patrice just exploded. And I don't know. It just completely slayed me.
Yeah, you see now how you couldn't tell that story the way it should have been told.
Yes,
it would have been, if you told it the way it would have been fucking 1,000 times fun. You see what they've done to us. You see what they've done? These motherless fucks.
Yeah.
It's true.
One of my favorite scenes from Louis is when him and the love interest are in a museum, and they come across this exhibit that has a button that says push, right? And he was like, "I'm going to push it." And she's like, "No, don't do it. Don't do it." And he's like, "Well, I have to." It says, push, right? He pushes it and it says the N-word really loudly. And then everyone around like turns around and she walks away. And he was like, no, it's the button. And he pushes it and it's like, like anything other than I feel like I made you get that clip for me, and I had it on my computer, and I would just watch it every now and then.
I gotta run because there's another show coming in here.
Yeah.
But I just want to tell you one more. It's similar to what you just said. I was on a plane, and this is when I was living with Louis. I had my laptop on the plane. I opened my laptop, and I hit, I don't know what button it was to turn it up. And Louis' voice comes on. He goes, "Your mother's an N-lover." He said the word.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, so loud. There was an Asian guy sitting next to me. He goes like this. There were two old ladies going like, I mean, everybody around me heard it. I shut the thing, didn't use it the rest of I was afraid to touch my own computer. I called him when I got to the hotel. I said, "You motherfucker." He couldn't stop laughing. Anyways, I got to run to let these guys in. But
Nick, thank you so much for doing this with us. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. This was
great.
Guys, I appreciate it. Tell the people out there to watch the Nick DiPaolo podcast every Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch it on YouTube and nickdip.com, especially the Comics Gym, GYM.com. And please sign up if you like. It's a really funny, honest, scary show. I'm sure I'll be arrested soon, so watch it now. And that's it. I thank you guys so much.
I'll come bail you out.
We'll
okay?
put all those links down in the description.
Yes.
We'll do all that.
Tell your grandfather I said hi. I love him.
Okay, I will.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Hey, guys. Thanks, Jonathan.
Nick DiPaolo is my favorite comedian.
Yes. Woo. That one got a little spicy. I loved it. I knew it was going to go crazy. He's one of my favorites from back in the day.
And you actually didn't edit that much out.
Nope. I don't think so. And you should go check out the Tough Crowd stuff. It's on YouTube. It's hilarious. Anyway, enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
We freed Britney, y'all. I keep winking. I don't know. It's a
Silly.
drunk thing. It's a drunk thing.